Hey, ma'am. Oh, you coming in here? Yes, ma'am. You can turn this off. Okay. Good day. Yes. Yes. So my ED is going to join me in my office. Sebastian, I have an office. Yes. Sebastian, your mic is off. Yes, 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 yes. We have been gone for a while, but we here. So what we do is we like to give people at least 5 minutes to come on in the room. And so it's 6:31, and so they got about 4 more minutes, and we are going to get started with another TWOC Talk Thursday. There you are, ma'am. Hey, you look absolutely beautiful.
Hey, everybody.
Hello there.
I can't see nothing.
Okay, put your glasses on, love.
I need to clean them real quick.
Okay, well, you have time to do that. Yeah. TWOC Talk Thursdays, honey. Come in the room, come in the room, come in the room. Yes, 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 yes. Let me pull this up. Do, 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 do. Let's go here. And no, this thing said. And I'm going to turn it down right here from here. Okay. There we are. And if you all don't mind, if you can go ahead and share to your own pages.
I'll be in now.
Yes.
Done so.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. What do they say? Share the live, share the live, share the live. Now how do I share the live from here?
Let me see if I can share it on HRC's page.
Hello, hello, Rarity. Thank you for being here.
Is it share to feed, right?
Yes, share to your to your own social media.
Is it
So
feed or
I click that, and like it's not showing from your, like if I go to your page like that, then I don't see it, to share it. But if I click it from there, I do. Let me see if I can go to the TWC page.
Are you asking me? I ain't texting.
Let's see. Bam, I got it. I can do it from here. And then share to my own page.
Hello, everyone. How y'all doing?
Doing good.
Nice to meet you, Bentley. So what part of Georgia are you in?
So I live in Longdale Park and South unincorporated DeKalb.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I used to pass that way when I lived in Grant Park.
Oh, cool.
How long you been here?
So I've lived in Georgia my whole life. I was born and raised in Georgia. But I've lived at this house with my partner, Robert, for a couple of years. Beforehand, I lived in Edgewood, and then I lived in Kirkwood. Before that, I lived in Macon. So, been all over Georgia. And I grew up in unincorporated Henry County.
Yeah. You've been in Georgia, baby.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to TWOC Talk Thursdays, Trans Women of Color Talk Thursdays, right here at Trans Women of Color Healing Project. My name is Raquel, and
I'm Toy Washington Reynolds.
Absolutely. And so what we want to do is, before we get started, we want everyone to introduce themselves. And so I'm going to start with Sebastian. Introduce yourself, sir.
Thank you so much, Raquel and Toya. How y'all doing, my sisters? Thank y'all so much for having me this evening. I am Sebastian Smith. My pronouns are he, him, and king. You can use all three of them or my name. I am the organizing director at the National Center for Trans Equality that just recently merged to Advocates for Trans Equality. And I'm also just a community friend, an advocate, an activist, just here to share space with both all of my Bentley and Camarion and all of my colleagues and my comrades today. So I'm just happy to be here, and I could talk all night about myself, but I won't do that. I will pass it over, I guess, to one of my co-panelists this evening. Bentley?
Hey y'all. So my name is Bentley Hudgens. I use they them pronouns. And I am the Georgia State Director of the Human Rights Campaign. And I am very, very grateful to be here with you all and just chat tonight on a Thursday evening. And so for those of y'all who may not have met me before, I am an Asian American Union member or organizer. I've been doing this work for a little over a decade, building power for the new American majority through all different types of organizing. And it was actually not too long ago was my 1-year anniversary here at the Human Rights Campaign. So I came to the Human Rights Campaign by way of movement organizing here in Georgia. And I'm really grateful beforehand. I was at the ACLU and the AFL-CIO and the New Georgia Project. And I'm just really excited to be here building power for queer people of all walks of life here in the state of Georgia. And I am really I have the honor of introducing the Reverend Carmarion Anderson Harvey, my colleague from Alabama.
Well, praise the Lord, everybody. Oh, come on. Put those hands together. Okay, I'm not going to do that. So thank you so much, Bentley, and hello to the world, and hello to these amazing warriors in advocacy, and to TWOC and their leadership, to Toy Washington Reynolds, and also to Raquel Henry, hyphen, if there's going to be one, I know it's coming next year. But I am so excited, and to Sebastian and my colleague Bentley. For those that may not know me, I'm Reverend Carmarion D. Anderson Harvey. I use the she series pronouns. I do serve as the Alabama State Director with the National Office of the Human Rights Campaign, as well as I am an ordained minister with the Fellowship of Affirming Ministry and in leadership at First Congregational United Church of Christ in Birmingham, Alabama. My background is in policy, organizing, electoral, pretty much same as Bentley, but additionally to that, public health, and also DEI. So I'm excited to be part of this conversation, and hopefully we'll be able just to kind of really, the titles don't matter. We have to have some real conversation. And I think we're in a state of emergency, especially for me as a Black woman of trans experience who is visible. And there are other sisters and siblings and brothers that I have that we're on the front line. We got to start having these courageous conversations. We have 12 more days, and I'll just leave it there, and I'll yield my time.
Absolutely. And with that being said, that is how we will get started. And so since you, yeah, I did. Yeah, we did that already. And so with that being said, normally how we like to start TWOC Talk Thursdays is we like to start it with 3 questions, right? And so with you saying exactly what you said, Carmarion, I want to start with you. 3 questions. How are you feeling about the current state that we are in now? What do you see as the part that you play, right? And the other piece I want to say, as a woman of faith, not just what part do you play, but how are you able to lend your voice to show up in where we are today?
Yeah, so if I leave anything out, jump in. But how am I feeling? I can use a lot of adjectives to be able to describe where I am. And I'll just say there's a yin to my yang and my emotions and where I am. There is times that I am feeling optimistic. There are times where I am feeling at the top of the mountain, already celebrating a win. And when I say a win, to be nonpartisan in this segment, the win that I choose where my vote counts. You understand, right?
Absolutely.
But I also, at times when I am looking at those individuals that is supporting a candidate of some sort, as it relates to where I do not subscribe to, where it will continue to discriminate a person like me and my intersectionalities as a woman of trans experience, as being Black, being a woman, being in the Deep South, and so forth. But I think right now, what I feel is that I feel very grateful. I feel very much in position where my hope is built on nothing less but Jesus Christ and his righteousness. You understand where I'm going? So I am speaking those things which be not. And the candidate that I have in my heart and the candidate that my organization, Human Rights Campaign, has endorsed, which is Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz, I believe that this is our season. It's our season for the nation, but it's our season. And this is how I'm feeling, my I statement. If they are talking about all people, I know that me as a Black one of trans experience in the Deep South, Deep Southern South, grease and butter at the same time on the stove, that they're thinking about me. How does that impact? Well, I'll bridge to saying, if we do not get the right candidate during this election season, we have already been attacked in all of our state legislatures sessions across the United States, trying to erase us that are trans identities here in the nation, as if we are not human. And they have attempted, some legislatures have passed those discriminatory legislation laws and or have become laws. And we have an opportunity to reclaim our time, as Auntie Maxine would say.
Absolutely. Hold up.
Yes.
Bring it to our conversation.
I am so sorry. Listen, I told you to interrupt because I'm excited. Let me just say this last thing about faith, though, about faith. It is our duty for those that subscribe to a spirituality, a religion, but more importantly, our faith. It is our consciousness. It is our duty to go out to make sure that we are selecting a candidate that is for all humanity, all children of the divine, this entire earth that is going to allow the earth to manifest and not allow this earth to be crumbled. This is not what we were here for. So my faith is strong. A size of a mustard seed, as I like to say from the word, but it's even bigger than that. Every day when I get up in faith. Anytime I am doing phone banking, canvassing, talking to my social network, have you voted? Do you have a voting plan? I am doing that through my faith. So my faith can not only activate my conversation in what I believe, but so my faith can link onto someone else's faith so they can also take on the bandwagon or the banner. I just feel like I'm going to church, the banner, and run with it so they can get into their social network so we can make a huge difference. I'll yield my time.
Thank you. Hello, somebody. Yes. Now, Sebastian, how are you feeling, right? How are you feeling yourself? And then what do you feel about the present state that we're in? And then the work that you do, how do you believe it can affect, make change for where we're going?
Absolutely. So, that's a hard comment to follow there because it sums it up, right? It sums, I think, up what all of us are feeling right now. I think there's a mix of optimism. There's a mix of hope. There's a mix of being grateful for where we are, that we do have a choice here. And I want to say that that when has there ever not been a choice between the greater of two evils? So we've always been in that situation. We've always been in, there's never going to be a perfect administration. Maybe in our lifetime, I think our new millennials and our Gen Z folks, like, they got it. So maybe in our lifetime, there may be, but there's never going to be a perfect administration. But what it is that there is going to be an administration that will work with us, right? That will listen to us, that'll be able to be open-minded enough to bring us into these conversations. And so we're in these rooms making these decisions for ourselves and helping to inform our lawmakers and our policymakers. The other decision going the other way, we won't have the opportunity to do that. We won't have a seat at the table. I don't care if you're not anything other than cis, straight, and white. All of your rights are going to be wiped away. We're going backwards. So right now we have a choice between strategy, and that's my job. That's what I can offer, is talk about strategy, talk about how this and be real, how this decision may not feel good for a lot of us, but we have the decision of going forward or going backwards. I want to move forward. I want my people to move forward, right? And I want to be able to have an administration that I can hold accountable. One of them, we're not going to be to hold accountable. We're not going to be. The other one, we can. We absolutely can, right? So again, that's what the space in which I feel like I pick up, and my emotions right now are all over the place. They're up and down. Sometimes I'm very hopeful. Sometimes I'm fearful. I'm optimistic. I think fear right now should be very real. And this is an all hands on deck moment, right?
Yes.
It really is a all hands on deck moment. And if we don't look at it that way, it's going to pass right over us. It's going to pass right over us. So I don't have any too much more than what Kamarion offered, but just to add on to that, it's an ebb and flow, and it's an up and down of these emotions. But we got a job to do, y'all.
Yes, indeed. Bentley, and now it is your turn. So I will say to you, one, how are you feeling? Same question, how are you feeling? And I want to pose to you with the position that you hold at the Human Rights Campaign. What do you feel as a non-binary individual? What part do you play? What can you do? What are you doing to be able to change the narrative where we're concerned?
One, thank you for having me.
Yes.
And I'm really grateful to be here in a room full of friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think how I'm feeling, like personally, like Sebastian said, it's a little bit of a roller coaster. But the through line for me has been gratitude.
Yeah.
So earlier last month, I was able to drive Monica Helms to go meet Gwen Walls. And Monica, she created the Trans Pride flag and created TAVA, which is an organization to advocate for trans vets. And look, I had to wake up super early to go pick her up from Marietta from South DeKalb to drive her to Augusta. And in that moment, I was like, you know what? She really wants to meet Gwen. Let me just go drive her. So Monica, being who she is, she was like, well, are we getting breakfast? I was trying to rush. I was trying to like do my thing and let's get the boom. And Monica slowed me down in the best way possible. In that moment, I was so focused on getting there on time and doing all these different things. And I didn't want to miss this moment because I looked over to Monica and I said, do you know how grateful I am for everything that you've done? And she told me the story about how she created the Trans Pride flag. Like the whole process of how the original creator of the original Pride flag came up to her and said, you guys should have one for the trans community. She told me how she designed it, how she sent it to the flag maker who made the first original one, and how she got to see it, and the story of her seeing it pop up across prides across the country, and from one to another to all over the country in just a few short months. And then she told me about how her and her friends were getting discriminated against by just trying to get cold medicine from the VA, and what they did in response to that, and how they organized to get equal treatment after they had made sacrifices for their country. And look, as an Asian American, I can feel a certain kind of way that I feel about the American military. But as a person in that car, I felt so grateful for her. Because as I was driving there, I thought, this woman has dedicated decades of her life for people that we both care about and people like me, to be able to live in a freer, more just, more equal world. And I can't lose, because Monica and the people that I know, in addition to Monica, have given so much to me and to our community. And so how I'm feeling is grateful, because somebody told me once, so my good friend Nsé Ufat, I call myself a student of Nsé. She taught me a couple of things, right? There's the chorus theory of organizing, right? Where people needed to be able to take a breath, but we have other people to hold the note. And the other one is that we have to organize out of love. We can be angry, we can fuss, we can fight, but if we organize out of anger, we will burn out or make dumb decisions. And how I'm seeing the work is not only from a lens of gratitude, but out of deep love for our people. Because that's the only way we can do this work. And as I look towards the future, and I look in my position at the Human Rights Campaign, who hasn't always done the right thing for everyone, and the road ahead, this past year, we had to be, not that we wanted to, or that I'm not, I'm proud of it, but we had to beat 23 anti-LGBTQ plus bills in the Georgia state legislature. It's the most that has ever been introduced in the history of our state. Because extremists in the state house, the state Senate really, were empowered by MAGA extremism and white supremacy and organizations that have been propping up damaging and deleterious legislation across the country. And we caught a lot of it. We were able to beat it this time, but I'm thinking about the future that we're probably going to have to see this on the other side of this election. And so as a non-binary person and who sits in a lot of different intersections as the Georgia State Director, I'm thinking, all right, so there's a lot of healing that we have to do so that we can be able to love in a truthful way and speak truth to power. So my job, as I see it, is to create a space where real community can be created and fostered and nurtured, that resilience can be protected and invested in, and that people can truly be cherished. Because movement work, from my perspective and from my experience and how I've seen it done best, is when we love on people so much that they take action because they love each other, right? And so that's where I'm sitting. It's that, we're working countless hours to win for equality in the White House and the State House because we want to see our siblings and our family and our communities thrive. People should be able to be healthy, to have equal opportunity at every single point of their life, no matter who you are. And that is the future that we're fighting for. We're not fighting for a certain candidate to get into office. We're not fighting for certain laws. Those are all tools and tactics for the end goal of safety, of peace, of happiness. That is what we're really fighting for, and that's what I'm pretty resolute in. And so where I sit at this particular position is reminding people of what we are truly fighting for, so that we don't get lost in the moment and we lose our strategy and we lose our reserves and we deplete our energy so that we can't continue to organize. And so that's where I'm sitting. And, there's a lot of things with this election that are making me worried. But I do think that we have an opportunity to win big, both in the White House and the State House.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bentley. So, Toy, I'm going to go to you. How are you feeling? And what role do you believe belongs to you? One, as an ED of a Trans Women of Color Healing Project organization, and as a future politician.
Thank you for asking that question. I believe that how I feel right now, I'm fired up and ready to go. And I believe that I can speak as a collective. I believe we were built for this.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that we were built for this. I know I'm definitely built for this, but I believe that we as a community and as a people, we're built for this. Mm-hmm. I think it's very important that we show up right now in this particular time because we understand what it feels like to exist in a place where, in a world where they say that we shouldn't exist, to defy scientists and doctors and be those things and be called, and like Kamarian said, have the faith the size of a mustard seed and allow that faith, and that faith that's inside of us manifests and it grows and allows the universe to allow, and the creator creates this thing inside of us, and that's the thing that navigates us and calls us to service. So I'm excited about where we are right now in our future, because I believe that something amazing is going to come out of this. I believe that chaos births order. I believe that chaos births order. Mm-hmm. And I also understand that we as trans, as TGNC and gender diverse folk, We understand what it feels like to fight. We understand what it feels like to have to crawl from the ruins and having to fight for a place when history have already taken us out of. And understand what it feels like. And because we understand what that feel like and what that look like, we able to lead the charge with our communities that's on the brink of being erased, that's on the brink of being eradicated. We're looking at what's taking place right now with our communities of color, with our Black folk and our history and our ancestors and everything that they've fought for. It's being erased slowly but surely out of history books. We know what erasure feels like. This organization and many like it was created to combat that erasure. And we're called for this moment. We're called for these moments. Each one of us that's on this panel and all of us that's called to service and doing this work, we're called for this moment. And as far as me and my leadership as an ED, I understand that there's no coincidence that when you start to create a space and you create an organization, upon you starting your organization, they ask you, what is your
mission statement?
No, not what's your mission statement, what's your exit strategy?
Oh.
Before you even get the organization started, they actually start working on your exit strategy.
Oh, wow.
And it was the craziest thing ever to me. I'm like, well, girl, I haven't even got the organization started yet, and you're asking about an exit strategy. And what I realize now is that when the organization was created a few years ago, if we're still dealing with the same things and the same issues that was created when the organization was first created, that means that the organization and its work hasn't evolved and hasn't done the things that it needed to do. And because of that, I'm clear on my assignment and I know where I'm going and I know what the future looks like. And because of that, I'm called to the world. Yeah. And I'm excited about what that looks like. And being a part of this work and being a part of this community and being a part of what this looks like, this transformational space, is a part of that assignment. So I'm grateful to be here and share a space with like-minded, brilliant individuals that's called to service.
Can I ask? Can I just something that Toy said that I just want to just uplift, and the word was an exit strategy, and I'm not sure if many of us have comprehend that if they, not gender nonconforming, just a collective, if they do not win, their exit strategy is our state house is going to be flooded with discriminatory bills because of retaliation.
My God.
I want to mention that. That is why it is so important that we do our part, that we go out and we take everybody with us, your mama, daddy, your chosen family, your aunts, uncle, all the 50 billion children that call you mom and daddy, and and all that in our community. We take them. And for those that are not eligible to vote, does not mean you still can't show up and do your part.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
You can still educate. You can still encourage others to go vote also on your behalf. Okay? But there is an exit strategy that they already are planning. Let me also give you another exit strategy that they will continue to push Project 2025.
Yes.
I literally want us to get this, how important it is for us to be having these conversations in the 11th hour. I want to remind us in the 11th hour where history either can be made and take us to our next dimension, or history can go back to the blueprint or perhaps the black print that kept us in slavery and that kept us being less than and no access.
Yeah,
that is how important it is for us to know that we cannot afford their exit strategy. Our strategy is for us to win because it gives us time to continue to prepare so we do not have to pull out our exit strategy.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
The question is, do we have one?
Right, absolutely. And while we're right here, right, the question that or should I say what I was going to start off by saying is, some say that this is the most important election of our time. And that leads me right into my first question for the panel, and anyone can answer it. And the question is, do you believe that that is important that we vote, or one of the biggest misconceptions is that our voices don't matter? Anyone can answer it.
I'll jump out there first, Raquel. I think that we're here to show the importance of our voices, to show the importance of our votes and how they do matter, right? I think that has been miseducation, misinformation around voting that scares us, and it's a fear and it creates a barrier. We think that when we see that, our government is not protecting us the way that we can, that they should, and we see the people who are in office and what dominates the office, it makes you less hopeful. But there are so many instances, so many races that have been so tight that if we had not have shown up, things would have went the other way. Don't let folks take away our power from us, because that's what it is. It's taking away our power. It's saying, hey, you black person, hey, you trans person, your voice don't matter. You don't have power here. But there are according to Williams Institute, there are 1.6 million trans folks from 13 age plus. 1.3 in the US, 1.3 million of those folks are adults of voting age. Is that not a voting block? Is that not enough people to change something? So we have to really tap back into our power and realize our voices in the simple fact of showing up is where that power lies. And let's be clear, like, if you don't vote, you voted. You made a choice. If you don't vote, and we're here to say, hey, there's this. I have the luxury of working for an organization that, and I will call it a luxury and a privilege, that has both C3 and a C4 arm. I think HRC has some kind of setup like that too, right? So there's that C3 side of generals saying, hey, we care who you vote for, but we don't care who you vote for, just go vote, right? Make sure you're using your voice, because this is a privilege that also is afforded to you. And you don't know, and you can't complain if you don't show up. Let's be real, right? And then there's that other side that's saying, hey, this is the candidate we're going to all get behind and endorse and say, hey, this is the person or the one that we've seen that will allow us the rights that we need, will allow us those spaces and those platforms to talk about where the gaps are, talking about what's happening in state legislature, so we have a seat at the table, right? And really understanding where your power lies in there. Because as folks try to erase us and we don't show up, we're proving it. We're proving that we don't matter, that we don't care, that we don't exist. So again, I want to be clear that even if you don't vote, you've made a choice. You actually voted. You actually did make a choice. So again, it's really, really important, because you don't know how tight this race is going to be. And I also want to say this, y'all, November 5th, we might not even know at the end of that evening who is going to be our president. We might not even know going into the end of this year, honestly, who will be our president, because it will be probably contested in court. We will probably go through. Trump is not going to go down lightly, y'all.
No,
Trump is not going to go down quietly either. So I still want us to be very real about the moment that we're in, about the climate that we're in, the moment that we're in, and that every single one of those voices and those votes are going to matter. And I will argue to say every election has been the most important election of our lives, because it dictates the next 4 years, probably 8 years of our lives. So each and every one of them are equally important. So we all know to show up. But this race is going to be tight, and it could very much so be this 1.3 million of us with our voting rights showing up to the poll that makes this thing go the right way for us. So again, don't let that rhetoric deter you or sway you away from using your right to vote. We see it. We know the story as Black folks. Women should know the story, right? We know these voting stories, right? We got all that. We know it. So again, it's important that we show up, because this race is going to be tight, and it's going to come down to these battleground states, and we know we are in those places. We know we're in those rural places in those battleground states. So yield my time as well. But yes, we definitely, our voices are so much more important than society tries to make us believe.
And somebody else can answer the second half. If this is so, do you believe that we have seen enough engagement from Black and Brown communities to impact our lives and experience. Toy, since we are built for this, because you said that we were built for this, and a lot of people like that.
I have to answer that first part for it.
Okay.
First, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest misconceptions is that we feel as our voices don't matter. Because at the end of the day, there's over 400 years of trauma. There's trauma that we deal with as formerly enslaved folk in America, formerly enslaved Black folk in America, that America has still haven't given to Black folk, has still haven't given to formerly enslaved folk. There's still trauma that trans folk experience, indigenous folk, that still have not received. And because of that trauma, situations like this allow things called a thing called PSD to show up. And everybody don't know how to deal with trauma in the way that they should. And sometimes it paralyzes folks. Trauma shows up in many different ways. And this is one of those times of year when that trauma shows up, because it makes a person feel powerless. It makes a person feel that their voices doesn't matter. If you look at the news and how they're recycling information, and it just uses one particular incident. You saw folks getting engaged right before early elections started. There was a case in Missouri where the Black guy was going before the board to try to get his oh my God, in Missouri. He was trying to get his life. He was trying to get his
license.
No. It was putting him to death. He was trying to get
get overturned.
Get his what you call them overturned. And they denied his sentencing, his death sentencing overturned. And it was denied. And fast forward, we saw maybe a week later, the Caucasian guy in Texas, his was overturned. So when we see situations like this, and we see how the news sensationalize the oppression of Black folk, and when we see things like that happen, the first thing Black folk say is what? See, I told you our voices don't matter.
Right.
And what we have to understand is how media plays a part in all of these things that take place. But I also want to assure our people that we have the right to control what happens with us. We have the right to control what happens with the media. With these people in the office, they work for us. And I think that's one of the things that we don't understand. We elect them and we can fire them. If they don't do what we need to do, we can get them out of there. And I don't think we have had the right conversations. We talk about voting, but when was the last time we really took time to educate folk on how to vote, how to go down the ballot, and how to identify the people that align with your principles? We keep saying vote, vote, vote. How many times have we really taken time to say, okay, well, have identified barriers to voting for folk? Sometimes we may tell a person to vote, but maybe can that person read? There are so many other barriers that take place, and I didn't realize that until we started to lift our voices to vote campaign over 4 years ago. That there are so many barriers that take place when it comes to us getting before we get to the poll. Transportation is one of those barriers. Right. As you see the gerrymandering and they're moving the polls, and in Georgia, the governor make it illegal for you to give elderly folks a chair or water or things of that nature. And all of those barriers take place. So as we're talking about making it easier for folks to vote and exercising their voices, we have to think about the systems that's eliminating the possibilities and eliminating the chances for us to get to the polls. That's making it possible for us to vote. Do I believe we've seen enough engagement from our Black and Brown communities? I believe that we have seen engagement this year that's right. How can I put it? It's been monumental in a large way. Even though we have not been seeing, as they say, we haven't seen the onslaught of support from Black males and situations, but what we are seeing is we're seeing a lot of support from Caucasian women, and we've seen a lot of support from other bases that we didn't see. And what I also believe that we're going to see, we're going to get a lot of support from Gen Zs. We're going to get a lot of support from those new voters who they're not expecting. They're basing the election off of folks that's already registered to vote. They're not basing it off of the folks, off of the new voters, the first time voters, that's really going to really swing this election, because they're totally, and they totally understand how important it is for them to have autonomy over their bodies, for them to make decisions over their bodies. So I do believe that we're in great position to be able to have the White House. I hope that we get the seat. Hopefully we get the Senate, and I hope we get Senate and Congress. But I know we're definitely going to get the White House. But I want us to get the Congress and House. I want us to get all of it, so she can be able to do what it is she needs to do. And I need Biden to go out the door passing executive orders that's gonna make it easier for her to be able to do the things that need to be done.
Okay.
Can I just want to chime just a little bit on the question? I'm going to just slightly change it, because when we speak about our voices for Black and Brown, I want to elevate the voices or the disinformation and misinformation of voices that we think is on our side. Not every person that's Black and Brown is going to vote for a marginalized candidate such as Kamala Harris.
Mm-hmm.
That challenges me, because spiritually, I'm gonna bring my faith in, okay? Spiritually, we are in a season of lifting up Deborah of the nation. The only judge, the only ruler in the Old Testament and the Jewish teaching also that was ever lifted up in the Old Testament. Mm-hmm. This is the season, people. If it didn't work these last years, since I've been on earth and since you've been on earth, what is wrong with the change? God will change anything for the season and the purpose where we need to go. And so I am discouraged when I see my Black cis male individuals, my white cis male individuals that was once on this side of heaven, but is trying to use conservative language as if we are sinning because we're voting for a woman, and then want to roll out things that she support as is sin. No, get over it. Drop your hyper masculinity and know that if there wasn't for a woman, you wouldn't even be birthed here in the earth. Let me just start there. So it challenges me when I hear the rhetoric, but yet you want to not see a woman in leadership. And I can even take that denominational wise, where they still, like Raquel and I, we preach around this world that we have to sit here and combat hyper masculine masculinity because they're threatened with the anointing. And it just happened to be with us that are women at that particular time of that invite. Well, we got to get past that. Okay. We really do. I also look at these same men, and I'm focusing on men for true, because I love men. Amen. I do. Okay. I do. But let me just tell you, the same thing I'm seeing the men target at Kamala are the same behaviors of men that targets at Black trans women. It's no difference. None whatsoever. As long as I am doing my domestic duties, you don't have a problem. But the moment that I step in a role because of your shortcomings, or because I want to live out my truth that might open up out your truth, then you have a problem. Mm-hmm. And the harm sets in. They don't understand the harm that they putting on this Black, Asian, Pacific Islander woman while she is campaigning, because of their rhetoric behind, because she's a woman that is about to be in leadership. Well, by God, it is about time. If God can use Mary, I know that God in this season can use Kamala Harris. Come on, somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Somebody. And we have to look at it as no respecter of person, not gender, not race. But what is coming out of this woman of God vessel mouth when she's campaigning? I will be the president. She's already on the job. She's the vice president. She's already proven some things. She's for all people. All people means all. She does not define what all people is like other candidates. There is no definition when you have all. And so I really want to speak to those voices, those naysayers that is really creating division in our culture of voting. This is an opportunity. I was on a live earlier. Just in the 60s, the woman can, or 60 years ago, woman can remember where Black folks had to pay $2 just to vote.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are now, not exercising our vote or choosing to vote for a candidate who has already been found guilty. I yield right there. But we got to have those courageous conversations. And guess what? Having them now is too late. We got less than 2 weeks, or right at 2 weeks.
Yeah,
In order
I think
for
that
our
people
nation
forget. I think that people forget that first and foremost, our mothers have always been good enough to make decisions. So if our mothers, like you said earlier, because if it were not for our mothers, none of us would exist. So if our mothers have always been good enough to make decisions, surely a woman who is a mother should be able to make decisions for this world. Let's go right into our next question. How do you all feel about the Democratic Party? How do you feel that the Democratic Party has responded to the needs of Black and Brown folk in the LGBTQIA community?
That's a loaded question. Go ahead, Bentley.
Look, I don't know if I'm the right person to answer the question, but I will say this. I was trying to explain to some of my colleagues in the Democratic Party so I'm Japanese American. My dad is Japanese, my mom is white, and I grew up in a mixed race household, right? And I'm used to tense conversations where people disagree. But I was talking, so the issue of Palestine is something that has really been an issue for a lot of people in the Asian American community. And a lot of folks inside of the Democratic Party sometimes have a hard time giving room for people to process how they're feeling about what is happening overseas. And I kind of had to have a real conversation. I had to remind them, I said, hey, y'all, you can feel however you want to feel about the truth of the situation. But the majority of Asian Americans in this country are here because of U.S. imperialism abroad. At some point or another, the U.S. has dropped bombs on our countries of origin. And the displacement from military activity has created refugees that are now here, or has created unhealthy situations in which, like, my own grandmother got here from the military, right? She's a military bride. And so I had to be kind of honest with people and just say, hey, we need to hold space for people to really think through how they feel about many different situations, including this one. Because the truth of the situation is that people came to this country in a lot of different ways. And a lot of us might have had a refugee story. And so it's triggering and it's traumatic to see a country that you want to love harm people who might look like your cousin.
Yeah.
And that's not different. And what I have to also remind my community about is that Black and brown folks in America have been dealing with that since they got here.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah.
And some of our folks have only been here 70 years, 50, 30. So we might be a lot bit newer to this country, right? But what I have to remind, so I can only speak from my lived experience, right, as an Asian American. And so as an Asian American, what I've experienced in the Democratic Party has been, we have to make room for people to wade through the different triggers of the trauma that may have happened by how they got to this country based upon the situation that we are in internationally.
Gotcha.
And at the same time, we have to make sure that, in my community that we are standing in solidarity with the Black liberation movement that so many of us have taken inspiration from to create our own movements.
Absolutely.
So one thing, I talk about this all the time. So I say Asian American on purpose. It's a political identity in addition to an ethnicity. So Asian American is actually a term that was created by Japanese and Chinese students in 1964 on the coast of California. There were students who were inspired by the Black liberation movement of the civil rights movement. And they looked at each other and they said, it doesn't matter if we came from the Philippines, from China, or Japan. People in the US in power see us as Asian, and they treat us less than because of who we are. And the term Asian American came out of that conversation, out of an inspiration of the Black liberation movement here in America. And so I try to tell my own people that all the time. We have this term because of a solidarity movement.
Right.
Right? And so long story short, let me wrap up what I'm saying. One is that we need to do better. And, the Democratic Party has to do better in allowing for differing opinions and giving space for more progressive voices instead of flirting with Republicans at any moment's notice to get more votes. Right? They wouldn't let a Palestinian elected Democrat in Georgia go on the stage of the Democratic National Convention, but they let Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan, who passed the abortion ban, up on stage, who was a Republican. Right? So, one. Two, so not being afraid of differences of opinions is really important to build a diverse coalition. And two, in terms of the internal coalition, we have to do better at respecting the Black liberation tradition. Because we can't say that we want to take the tradition, the spirituality, the lessons, and the structures, and not respect the people who we're sharing space with now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then to wrap it up is, I think, that's, I don't work for the Democratic Party. I work for the Human Rights Campaign, and I work in my job to build power for LGBTQ plus people, period, and the new American majority, and that exists in and outside of formal structures like the Democratic Party. And I think the problem is, I keep trying to tell people that voting. So earlier, we talked about voting. To me, voting is civic hygiene. It's like brushing your teeth. You got to do it or things get stinky. And right now, our democracy stinks. So what we need to do is, voting is one of the many different tools that we have in our tool belt to build power and safety and peace for the people that we love, but it's not the only one. And so while the Democratic Party may not be the perfect partner at all times, I got so many other options to do so many other things. So I think that is the thing that I try to remind people about is, just because someone isn't my best friend all the time and we're not always effective or we're not always jamming, right now they are our best option. And on the other end, we have so many other things we can be doing besides voting. After we vote, we go drive a mutual aid. After we get off this call, I'm about to get up in drags and go perform for my friend so she can get her face surgery. So we're raising money for her FFS, right? There's so many different ways for us to take care of each other, and voting is just one of them.
Yeah. So, Toy, how do you feel whether the Democratic Party has responded to the needs of Black and Brown folk in our LGBTQIA plus community?
I feel like I was having a conversation with some close friends of mine, and they called me. They were enraged 2 days ago after the interview that Vice President Kamala had when she was asked what would she do in support of transgender folks around medical services and transition-related services. And for me, I know the work that the administration is doing. Mm-hmm. I know the bill that the Biden administration has passed to end gender-based violence. I know the work that the Biden administration has done around to combat HIV and hate crimes and all of those different things. And so for me, I think they do a lot of that. I know how they show up for us, but I feel like we're in a DL situation. I feel like we're in a closeted situation because I know how they show up, but they're not standing up for us in the public. They're not defending us in the public. There were over 500 bills that were introduced, anti-trans bills, anti-LGBT legislations that were introduced, and they did a horrible job at combating them or even putting a message behind them. And even in the interview, I understand her stance, but so many of our community members are upset because she couldn't say the word trans, or she couldn't say that I stand behind and support them, and just say that trans are human rights because she didn't want her support to be weaponized and used against her.
Right.
And I think that's where we are. And I think we have to demand that they do a better job moving forward. We know what they're doing policy-wise to protect us. And of course they can do much more, but we have to make sure that we hold them accountable moving forward.
Absolutely.
I agree with Toy. The only thing that I want to add is, because this is going live, so many different regions can respond differently as it relates to the Democratic Party based off the diversity of the party, the classism of the party, the who's of the party. I am speaking from someone who does deep Southern work and who has lived in the South and passionate about the South going to its next dimension. And if I had to answer this, and I love the Democratic Party in the work that we do together, that I'm afforded to be at their table, they're afforded to be at my table. I was having a conversation with someone who is an elected official in this party. And we both agreed the challenge with the party, to your question, when it comes down to us that are Black and brown, thus that are part of the transgender community, heck, LGBTQ plus across the board, is that they perhaps can often forget that they too once, by race, was on the chopping board and the chopping block. And that when that tactic cannot be played much longer by the opposite, another marginalized group becomes on the chopping board. That will make sense to them because it coincides with their mission of democracy and civil rights in the Democratic Party. The last few years, we as the transgender community, our babies, our youth, our adults, have been on the chopping block. And to be honest, to me, they forget that this is the same tactic that was done to our ancestors, that was done to their forefathers, and that this is still a Black issue, just packaged differently.
Right.
And so they don't show up. So what I am trying to say is, in the area where I am at, I need the Democratic Party across the South, no particular, to reimagine, one, how do they filter these populations in their minds, and how do they offer a level of empathy, true empathy, because it is the same tactic, just a different group on the chopping block. And I'm going to constantly continue to promote that. That will leave room for them to become educated around Black and brown transgender community, educated when they see the numbers of Black and brown trans identified women who are murdered each year. The numbers keep shooting up. They can become educated knowing, let's first start with, we're Black and brown. We're the same color as you in your party. Let's start there. Then, through your empathy, let's find out what you don't know. So then your empathy can help us put forth legislation that will then be in position to protect us, where we can see numbers go down. And so one of the things the conservatives have been good at is allowing a monkey wrench to get into the Democratic Party, to get into the Black and brown community that intersects our democracy, for us to be feuding with one another in our own communities. I'll just say amen myself. I'm calling it like it is.
Amen. Okay? And so
I'll
listen,
like
while you're talking, right, I want to go right into the religion piece. So I want to read this, what happened on April 8th, 2024. So this past Monday, right? The Vatican issued a new document approved by Pope Francis stating that the church believers that gender fluidity and transition surgery, as well as surrogacy, amount to affronts to human dignity. The sex a person is assigned at birth, the document argued, was an irrevocable gift from God, and any sex change intervention, as a rule, risks threatening the unique dignity the person has received from the moment of conception. People who desire a personal self-determination, as gender theory prescribes, risk succumbing to the age-old temptation to make oneself God. Regarding surrogacy, the document unequivocally stated the Roman Catholic Church's opposition, whether the woman carry a baby, is coerced into it, or chooses to subject herself to it freely. Surrogacy makes the child a mere means subservient to an arbitrary gain or desire of others. The Vatican said in the document, which also opposed in vitro fertilization. The document was intended as a broad statement of the church's view on human dignity, including the exploitation of poor and migrants, women, vulnerable people. The Vatican acknowledged that it was touching on difficult issues, but said that in a time of great turmoil, it was essential and hoped beneficial for the church to restate its teachings on that centrality of human dignity. So pretty much the Pope changed his mind right before that. And so you were accepting of us first, and now you've changed your mind. So how can we as a community ever be healed by the thing that has broken so many of us?
I'll go out there and say that my faith is right here in my house. Nobody dictates my faith and my belief system. Pope or nobody, Vatican. Good thing I don't go to the Roman Catholic Church. Like, none of that dictates who I am. And that's right. more in line with who our people are, who we are, and how we show up. We have to unlearn and relearn. We have to throw away the stuff, take it in, chew it up, and throw it away and spit it out if it does not belong to you. Because any group of people who tell me I don't have autonomy over my own body, you're already wrong. You're already wrong, and you're already fear-mongering. You're already teaching people to fear who they are, fear what their bellies and their guts are telling them who they are. To me, God is love. And loving myself is love. And anything else outside of that is not the God in which I understand. And that's okay, right? Heaven or hell is not for any one of us to put somebody else in. When we get, for those of us that are believers, we know we're going to stand in that line by ourselves. And I got a testimony and I got a story, and I was put here for this reason. If not, God would have showed me something else, and that's my belief. And that's not only my belief, that's my community's belief. So I want to say, folks, bite that shit. I'm sorry, bite that shit, spit it out, take it out, throw it out if it don't belong to you. We all have autonomy to make choices for our bodies. Any church, any legislators, any lawmakers that's telling you that you don't are fucking wrong, right? And until we stand up in that power, I don't care who you are. Until you stand up in that power, you're going to always feel like you don't have the tools. You're going to always feel like the world and something is against you, be it the church. I come from Mississippi. So my life was the church. My life was the church. Can you imagine how much stuff I had to unlearn? I had to unlearn because I was then bleeding on people that didn't hurt me because I got this toxic idea of how I'm supposed to show up as a Black person in the South. We don't do this. When I told my family I was transitioning, what? We don't do this. That ain't what you do, you know? So again, anybody of people who are telling you that you don't have the autonomy and using the guise of religion,
Crazy.
you're supposed to be fearful, right? Yes, I should be a God-fearing person, which I should be walking this earth with values that again that help me take care and love on the people. Right? That's how I get God fear. That's what I get from that. But I should not fear that God is going to come down here and smite me because I'm sitting in my authentic self. And I have not missed a blessing. I have not missed a meal. I have a roof over my head. Like all of the things they say I should not happen. All the things the church that say I should not happen, that should not be mine. I have it. And I am still trans. So again, y'all, we have to know that anybody or people that are trying to take your autonomy from you is not okay. And I don't care if it's coming from the church. I don't care if it's coming from our legislators. Have a God of your own understanding. Have a religion of your own understanding. Not all of us are believers in that way, Raquel. So what about those folks, right? So what about those folks who don't believe? And that's okay, because I can see where their optimism comes from. Right, I understand what atheism is. Right, I understand. I've been in conversations with atheists and had talks about God and my belief. So you have to have a deep understanding of religion and spirituality and how they're different from each other. So it's a ploy, and it's again something to use us to be fearful again. Right, take back our strength, y'all. Take back our strength. This world is built on patriarchy, misogyny. We see it. You just talked about it, right? So many of these other things. So for me, I could care less what the Pope's opinion. I could care less what the Vatican Church opinion is because they don't run 3500 Sable Glen. Sebastian does.
Hello.
Sebastian.
Send the check there. You got the address. Send the check there.
Send the check there.
Send the check there. I agree with all that. I want to give contextual that in the early church, the reason why the world perhaps bring attention to a lot because of the Catholic Church being the originators. And I'm like Sebastian, I'm not Catholic. It's very interesting of the choice words that they're using to define human dignity and the examples that they're using. So I had to do a quick search. Human dignity is the ideal that all people have inherent worth and value and deserves to be treated ethically and with respect. It's a fundamental right that's the basis of all and other fundamental rights. I have no idea how they put human dignity and give examples of IVF, give examples of gender affirmation surgeries. It, to me, there's a word that just slipped out of my mind. It doesn't make sense to me. It's actually contradicting in what you just read to me. Mm-hmm. It really does, because then it gets me to understand if the Pope is saying that it is that it's inherent that those genitalia stay in place regardless of someone who is going through dysphoria or anything such as that, then I want the Pope to back that up with scriptures, because there is plenty of scriptures where folks were born in and Jesus came and did a work. I mean, even in, I think it's John, disciples asked, was this, who sinned, him or the parents or whatnot, for him to be born blind? Neither. And Jesus still healed him. And even though the scripture says for this time of the glory, I want to just let you know, I don't understand what the Pope is saying, but every time I walk out of my house and my other trans-identified siblings walk out of the house, you are seeing the glory.
Hello. Hello.
The essence of the glory.
Yes.
Because what the divine did for us, to not allow us to go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, was for you to see that God is a God that changes not and will do what God wants to do, and it's not subject to man. That leads us to the election again. That leads us to the election, but where we serve an awesome king, not an earthly king. And so that's why our faith has to be attached how we vote. Because when you get rhetoric, respectfully, because I under all denominations and beliefs, but when you get this type of rhetoric, it then gets attached to legislation that then harms and continue to perpetuate the harm and discrimination. And then we start seeing the suicide rates go up.
Yeah.
We start seeing the attack on the transgender community and other marginalized community getting murdered. We start seeing access denied for us. We start seeing the privilege, the little privilege that we did have that we no longer have. And then now the homeless rates are kicking up. And it's because of our community, because of rhetoric like this. Well, I want to just serve notice to those that do not understand that we were all wonderfully made, created by the divine. And what the divine made here in the earth said it was good. And I would like to add and bring the New Testament, and it was acceptable.
For me, I think it's very important that we talk about that and have this particular conversation, because as Black folk in the South, as trans folk, as LGBTQIA plus folk in community, religion is that tool that's used to wean us out of our homes, out of services, out of care, out of church, out of community. And I think it's very important that we understand that religion is a man-made quest. Religion is man's quest to put God's image on human form. And where they go wrong at is what they don't understand is that God is in each one of us. And that's the biggest, that's the way they went wrong at. Religion is man's quest to put God in human form. And traditionally it has been in a white man's face. It has been even in Black churches. Historically, you can go in a Black church and you see a Caucasian Jesus in the Black church. And you hear the Black people saying all the time that, oh, homosexual, this and this it's an abomination. I have read the Bible in and out. And they say, well, you're not, trans folk are not in the Bible. This is not in the Bible. And okay, that terminology was not used, but there were terms that was used in the Bible to describe who we were during that time. If you want to translate our lives and how we exist during that time, it could, if you want to go that way, it could have been eunuchs. It was spoken of in that way, it was eunuchs. And there was 3 types of eunuchs that God blessed. But if you talk about that whole thing around Blackness, we talk about that erasure. There's nowhere in the Bible where God talks about Black folks. So while the Black folks are using religion to take us out of church, or taking us out of our families and using that to demonize us and send us to hell, your Blackness is not in that Bible. So understand how you will erase, even in this thing that you're perpetuating, this system of oppression you're using. There's a theologian called Howard Thurman, and he says that Pierre Cardin said, where spirits live in a human experience. Spirit has no gender. The scripture says, John 4:24, God is spirit, and his worshipers must worship in spirit and truth. Here, Jesus teaches that true worship is rooted in spirit and truth, rather than physical or outward expression. This reinforces that our connection with God is anchored in the authenticity of our spirit, transcending gender or any other earthly identifier. Spirit has no gender. And most importantly, I always question the thought concept. Jesus and God says, I am who you say I am. If you're a woman and you see God in your form, you're a woman. That's why we have to understand that. God says, I am who you say I am. I made you in my likeness and my image. If God made you in your likeness and your image, and you're a woman and you see a woman and you see God, that's who God is to you. That erasure piece is the thing that's problematic for me. And I think the problem is that we're trying to force everybody into this one box. And that's never going to happen. And that's why we're having this revolt. And that's why people are leaving the church. Because religion is the thing that they're rejecting. And religion is that thing that's problematic.
Because we've always been beat over the head that if you put God in front of it, then that means it has to be the truth.
No.
God said, if you put God in front of it, it has to be the truth. And for us having this conversation, like we have got to continue to have these kind of conversations, because in this 2-week, or as Carmarian said earlier, this 11th hour, what do we say to change the mind of those people, even those preachers? I read about in Detroit how preachers came together talking about how they need to be on Trump's side and using God as the premise where LGBTQIA plus folk are concerned, which makes no sense to me, because those same Black preachers got a gay person over the choir. And the same Black preachers, those hymns that they sing, they wouldn't have those hymns had it not been for somebody gay. So like at the end of the day, what is it that we need to do? What is it that we need to say? What is it that we need to convey in this 11th hour to change the minds of people who are trying to support somebody who's not even qualified to do the job?
Oh, I'll jump out there really quickly. Like my spirit, the first thing came to me is Raquel, and I'm gonna be honest, and if none of my co-panelists feel this way, that's okay. This is my own thing. I am not trying to change their mind. I'm not trying to. What I'm trying to do is get my people motivated. I'm trying to get the people that are in the middle, the people that say, hey, I respect your humanity. I don't quite understand this thing, but I respect your humanity. So I can get along with it because I'm Black, because I'm this, because my cousin is gay or queer, or all of these things. I have a common similar thread with what you're going through, so I can get on board with it. And then once I get on board, let's circle back around and you teach me a little bit more about your existence. Y'all had an HVAC tech stand in my house yesterday after I paid him with money from my transgender job and tell me that he's not voting and that we should vote Republican because Democrats are the reason why my firm is not working. Go figure. I don't know where his science is coming from.
What?
Yes. And then secondarily, because Kamala is going to pay for surgery for transgenders in standing in my home. So people are so bold now to say, because they see the ads, they see the interviews, they see the things, right? Which is why we have a now to get a person in the office that we can start changing that. So we can start, she need to talk to us. If she had came talk to HRC and A4TE and all of us before doing those interviews, we would not be here because she would be equipped with the answers to be able to speak to it. And I think right now it's really a political ploy anyway. It's a hot button topic. So they trust me, her campaign, they are afraid right now. They are wanting to know what they can do to get us back on their side because of that, because they know she did not say the right thing, right? But I go back to my point and say that, again, I am not trying to sway anybody. Even if that man stood in my home with me and my wife, I could have been in very much so danger. In that moment, I had a decision to make when he said that because he couldn't visually see that I was a trans person. I could have either just got him out of my house, but I chose that moment to say, hey, sir, before you start sharing your opinions, you may want to ask questions. You may want to say it in a way to have a conversation because you're talking to a trans person. You're talking to the very person, a type of person that you're talking smack about, and all of that crap is untrue. And you should know not to believe everything is on TV. So I had to go down that line of ending myths and telling you about the untruths in my very home. So it is taking legs. People don't have a basic understanding of who we are. They think we're going to prison and getting our surgery. They think our babies are going to school one way and coming home another way. When the shit is just not happening.
Right.
It's just not happening. And for me, I say it all the time, on the list of the amazing things that I am, sometimes trans don't even come first. Because when I go out of my door, I'm seen as a Black man. So I got to navigate the world as a Black man. That guy stood in my house, thought he had a comrade, thought he had a fellow Black man that was going to say, oh, yeah, forget those transgenders. Well, brother, you talking to a transgender. And you need to be careful about who you're talking to because not everybody is going to address you in the way that I just addressed you.
Because he was in your house.
Because you're in my house. And by the way, give me back my $20 tip from my transgender job. And I feel like we gotta stand in our power like that, y'all. Like, I'm not saying everybody, when you're confronted in that way, not everybody's in a good space to stand up that way. Not all the time is it safe, but I indeed feel safe in my home, and I was going to correct it, and I was going to say something right then. So I implore all of us, say something, speak out, let folks know that we're not your running mat. Like, you don't get to run and walk over us. I'm human and I deserve rights. I'm Black, and that's what the commonality piece that eventually me and him got to, is that we're both Black. We're both Black. I'm not convinced he's still gonna go vote, but we were able to come to the commonality of we are both Black, and the world both sees us as men, and Black men is synonymous with the threat. Right, so there's some commonality, brother, in our struggle. Whether you think it, why you're trying to distance yourself from a trans person,
Right.
You know, so yeah, like again, we really have to hone in on our power and unlearn some of the shit that we've learned and forced into us.
Without knowledge, the people perish. I think we have gotten to a point where some of them don't even want to know. I had an Uber driver in Texas, and he said that he wasn't going to vote for her because she ain't no Black woman. I know a Black woman. Then she gonna talk about she washed greens in the tub. Ain't no Black. My mom ain't never washed greens in the tub. And I said, "Excuse you?" He said, "Yeah." She said she washed greens in the tub. I've never heard that. And he said, and then she, killing all the people and the war. And he cared about the war in Gaza. And I'm like, do you understand what's going on to our people in Congo? Do you understand what Elon Musk and all of these other people and Putin and all of these Russians are doing to our people in Congo? Your people in Congo. What's going on to our people in Africa? How they're being exploited and their resources are taken, and there's famine on their land, but everybody else is becoming millionaires from their resources.
Right.
And we have to deliver aid. But there's very few to little Black people that saying they're so woke and they're not, especially Black men, saying they're not voting for her because of the war in Gaza. But it behooves me. It behooves me. And that's why I say a lot of times they don't want to know. They're just using those talking points that the media give them. And that neuro-linguistic programming, it really works. That neuro-linguistic programming, it really works. They do it with music. They do it with movies. And they understand how effective it is. They understand how effective it is.
Well, I will just say the last piece, I know because we're about to be at the end, I enjoyed hearing Sebastian's story. I had to think about at this 11th hour, and maybe this is, again, my I statement. Every day I'm a change maker, and every day I'm trying to change folks' minds. This go round, I just want to know if people got a plan to vote. And are you going to go and vote? But to support the candidate of my heart, if I had to pronounce something spiritual or just a comforting word, is that in this 11th hour for her and for us that are supporting, is Harriet Tubman did not need to change anybody's mind. She just continued to do the work and she won. Martin Luther King did not need to change anybody's mind. He showed up in his visibility, stand firm on what he believed. And here we are now having some Black rights because of the work. Byron Rustin did not need to convince people at all. He just went out there and did the work. My former colleague, rest her soul, Minister Bobby Jean Baker from Oakland, California, who founded, along with me, Trans Saints of the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries, used to tell leaders all the time, just go do the work. And I believe that that's what this candidate has done, is doing the work. So in this 11th hour, I am not trying to go back and forth to change anybody's mind, especially the conservatives. You do not even have to have conversation and tokenize me. I just want to know, did you go and vote? That is it. And if you tell me yes, then I can move on to the next person who might need a voting plan, who might need to talk that through, because we're at the cusp of our next dimension. And I pray that I feel like my mom, rest her soul. I pray that I live long enough to see this history, because it is going to open up other blessings that we need, that is going to shut the naysayers and the soothsayers and all of those that intentionally have meant us harm. This election is going to be the biggest impact to get back at those who have tried to intentionally, for no reason, to get to us as Black and brown trans-identified folks. And I'm here for it in the Holy Ghost with my popcorn, with my vanilla bluebell ice cream along with it.
And so with that being said, is there anything, because Carmarian did her piece, any last word that you, either you, Bentley, or you, Sebastian, or you, Toy, want to leave for our viewers and the people who have watched us? I want to say, before you guys do that, I want to say thank you to everyone who tuned in today. We normally go over to the comments and stuff, but we just want to say thank you for everybody who tuned in. And if you do not have a plan to vote, if you do have barriers, you can reach out to us right here at TWOC Healing Project, and we can help you address those barriers, because we are in our campaign lifting our voices to vote, and anything that we can do to help aid, to help get you to the polls, we are willing to do just that. So Bentley, is there one last thing you'd like to say, love?
Yeah. I want to say thank you for having me.
Thank you for
It is
coming.
a blessing to be amongst friends.
Yes.
Because we don't always get to be in spaces like this. So I just want to say thank you. I have a list of things ready. So hold with me.
Well, make it as short as possible.
Look, if you're like me, you're a progressive person that sometimes struggles with the larger strategy of, all right, we got to do the necessary thing now so we can do the things we want to do later. Here's why I'm personally invested in stopping Trump, right? I don't want a right-wing supermajority on the Supreme Court that will overturn decades and decades of hard-fought progress. I don't want a worsened and accelerated violence in Palestine, in Congo, and the Sudan, and across the global south because of Trump's alignment with other fascist leaders across the globe. I don't want to have to deal with an even stronger, coordinated, and organized attack to disappear LGBTQ plus Americans from public life, especially our trans and queer folks of color. I don't want to have to deal with. So as a Japanese American, I shivered to my bones when I heard Trump bring up the exact same law that was used to intern Japanese Americans in concentration camps at his rally in Aurora, to put forth a proposal for mass deportation and internments of legal immigrants in America. As a union member, I don't want to see the National Labor Relations Board gutted and all of the momentum that we have for union organizing obliterated. I don't want to see the U.S. Department of Education completely eliminated. It would gut funding for high-need schools. It would gut funding for HBCUs. It would stop pretty much all Title IX enforcement. I don't want to see the elimination of the possibility of getting Roe into law, into federal law. I don't want to see a potential administration that gives corporations carte blanche to wreak havoc on housing and the economy. Houses are already too dang expensive.
Right.
And I don't want to deal with an even more emboldened far-right extremist movement that will enact even more domestic terrorist attacks on people like us on this panel. So that's why I'm here, right? I know what I'm fighting against, and I also know what we're fighting for. We are fighting for an equal America. We are fighting for an America where we can go to a job, where we get good benefits, a union contract, and a pension. We're fighting for equal pay. We're fighting for not just, affordable health care. I would like free health care that is seen as a public investment. I want to see us safe in the streets, not watching our backs to see if people are targeting us or watching our backs to see if the police are targeting us. There are so many things that we are fighting for and that we're fighting against. And to me, the call is so clear. We have a choice to make. We can make a choice for equality, or we can make a choice for backsliding.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to go back.
Right. Absolutely.
Right? And so my closing message is that, y'all, earlier I talked about gratitude and love. We have to love ourselves and we have to love our communities enough to do the right thing. To take 15 minutes to go early vote. It takes 15 minutes. hop in your car, get somebody to drive you, call an Uber. I can probably find you a Lyft code. But look, we have to find a way to do the bare minimum. Voting is the bare minimum. That is the first step to taking action. And then after that, when we win, to get the right candidates in the office, we continue to hold them accountable to our communities, because the movement work doesn't stop and end with voting. It starts with voting.
Right, absolutely.
So that's my closing message, right? Is that we know what we're fighting against, we know what we're fighting for, and we know what the thing that we have to do is.
Toy.
Um, you're not alone. We're here. We're here to support you in that journey. We know what it feels like to be erased. We know what it feels like to feel alone, to feel abandoned, and to feel powerless. And in this moment, you don't have to feel this way. That's why this particular platform is created. That's why this organization is created, to provide information, to equip community members with tools, whether it's spiritual, whether it's civic engagement, whether it's eliminating barriers to get you to the polls. We have our Lifting the Voices to Vote campaign, where we can support you in that endeavor. If you need someone to help you in that spiritual journey, Raquel or myself can support you with that. If you need some healing modalities, a sound bath, yoga, sensory, because we know how this social political climate can be for some of us. We're here to support you in whatever that can look like in this moment. Self-care is important. We want to make sure that you get past this part. You got to go through it to get to it. So we just want to make sure you get through this part whole and healed.
Yes. Sebastian.
Thank you so much. I think Bentley and Toy both kind of surmised all of my thoughts, that I kind of put them in perspective. And, to what Bentley was saying, like, we have to understand, y'all, this is not black and white. And I mean that in a literal way and in a non-literal way. Like, this is not a black woman, not just a black woman and a white man running against each other, right? That is what we see, and it's being sensationalized, but there are far-reaching impacts. And I think Bentley hit on all of what we got at stake, right? Like, all of what's at stake for us right now, and why we need to make informed choices. We need to make educated decisions. Like I started this, we may not have the best two candidates. We never do. We never do. However, but as our people, as Black and brown trans people, this is what we have to work with. And this is what we know would get us in the door to have some of those secondary conversations. Because Bentley is absolutely right. Voting is just the first step. It's just the first step. So we got work to do after this is called. This is not where the work's gonna stop. We have a lot of work to do at that point, holding whatever administration, hopefully the one we want, accountable to getting some of these things right. So again, I want us to educate ourselves, be informed voters, pull up your ballots before you get to the polling place, so you know, because the presidential race is not the only race on your ballot, folks. So I need for you all to pull those ballots up and be educated on what you're going in to vote for, so that we can hopefully have this trifecta, right? Have both an administration and a Congress that supports that administration. If we need to do, and I can work with TWOC on this, if we need to do some civic engagement, and I'm not trying to embarrass anybody, but if we need to do some civic engagement 101, and we need to put some graphics out, and we need to do all of those things so people are educated how the voting process works, right? How the electoral college work, how these things work, because we're not in economics class and government classes anymore, most of us. If we need to do some educational things, I would love to work with TWOC to make that happen, so people can go into the polls feeling empowered, right? So thank you all for having me here today. Again, I just want people to be informed and empowered when they get to the polls.
Absolutely.
I'm just plugging an announcement real quick, just before we leave out, since it's about election, because we still have a few more days. I want people to know, us, especially in the Deep South, that everybody is looking at Georgia. Everybody. We got to win Georgia in the favor of our heart and our faith. In 2020, we only won Georgia. 0.2 something, 0.3, like 11,000 something. We are working hard in Georgia. I get an opportunity to partner with my colleague over in Georgia, Bentley, and we have rolled out our last GOTV. We need more bodies. I will love for folks to go to mobilize.us and search HRC Georgia. There are a plethora of ways you can get involved. If you want to make some phone calls on the comfort of your couch, if you want to come out and party with us in Canvas, if you want to become a poll watcher, come on, somebody. So some honest people will not turn us away, especially my community of the transgender community. There are a plethora of things. We need all hands on deck. Hear me clearly. If we lose Georgia, we potentially have lost the race. That's all I can say. That is how crucial it is. Bentley and I are getting lack of sleep because the anxiety. And for folks that live in Georgia, I want you to understand that is the reason why everybody and their mama's in Georgia, because we know how impactful it is. It is early voting in Georgia. I know there are other people in other states watching, but I'm doing my due diligence because Georgia is right next door. And what happens in Georgia? When Georgia sneezes, the world feels it, okay? Across the South. So please do your part. Please show up. Help us out. Lots of work to be done. We just need all hands on deck. And you do not have to be an expert to join our forces. There are things that you can do and you can learn in 5 seconds, and we can commission you to go do the work. So thank you for allowing me to mention that.
Absolutely. We want to say thank you to you, Bentley. Thank you to you, Sebastian.
Absolutely.
And thank you to you, Carmarian, for even coming on this evening to have this conversation. We will indeed continue this conversation on next week for our TWOC Talk Thursdays, because this conversation has got to be had, and we've got to put the knowledge out there that needs to be out there so people can know what has to be done in our community in order for us to move forward. And as Toy and I said earlier, if you have any barriers when it comes down to voting, you can reach out to us right here at TWOC Healing Project. You can reach me at Raquel, that's RAHKELH at TWOCHealingProject.org. You can reach Toy at TOI at TWOCHealingProject.org, and
On
anything
Facebook.
or on Facebook, you can reach out
Instagram.
in the our DMs, the message. You can reach out to us, as well as you can reach out to HRC, as Carmarian already foresaid, and we can be of an aid to help you get out and do your first line of action, and that is to vote. So again, our goal here at TWOC Talk, TWOC Talks Thursday, is so that we can help you get the tools to be on the road to being healthy, healed, and whole. Until next time, everyone have a great evening, and thank you all.